the Homestead Studios in Santa Clarita, California, this is a Headache Soul production. Welcome to Just the Tip-Sters, America's favorite true crime podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Morgan. With me today is my beautiful and talented co-host, Joshua Bevan. Say hello.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
You're always had. Always had. So lots of, I don't want to say corrections corner, because it's not really stuff that's fucked up, but definitely some news.
Okay.
The first one, which I never use my computer, but I wanted to get it correctly, is in the Delphi case, Richard Allen, a judge, a special state judge, has ruled that he cannot get a fair jury in that county. That makes sense.
Sure, yeah.
It's a very small county. The thing that made it interesting for me is that he said he is going to rule that jurors come from outside the county and then are sequestered in Carroll County. And I'm like, why wouldn't you take him and move him to a new, but they say that's expensive. And I was like,
it's more expensive to run the case elsewhere.
Why?
I don't know. That doesn't make sense.
Oh, you were questioning
No, I'm questioning
too.
it. Like,
I thought you were going to explain to me because I was like, I don't know.
Like, it feels like it would be the same-ish to run a case no matter what county you're in.
Okay. So the judge said moving the case out of Carroll County would be unfeasible due to the number of witnesses who live locally and that are scheduled to testify. And then she said moving the trial to a different jurisdiction would be extremely expensive. I don't, and I get it. He's not going to get a fair trial. I guess Carroll County is 20,000 people, but Delphi is like maybe 3,500. I mean, It's that small.
Wow.
I get it, but it's extremely weird. I mean, where do you think they're going to find people who haven't heard of it? Like people in Sri Lanka or Joshua?
I mean, I was going to say, if you hadn't told me, I would have been the perfect juror.
Sri Lankans or Joshua. That's it. The jury has got to be people who don't have internet connection or Joshua, who has all the internet connections but doesn't care.
I'm the worst.
Yeah. You'd be the perfect jurist. You would. I learned some interesting things. I was only called for Superior Court jury one time. And it was a great experience. There's about 250 of us kept in first, like a very kind of state office-y looking room. But then they moved us up because there were so many of us. They moved us up to this big room that had like two walls of windows so we could look out. But it was like rainy. We were there the whole goddamn day. And the first thing I thought was when we were downstairs, they did all of the announcements in English and in Spanish.
Okay.
And about a quarter of the 250 people spoke only Spanish. And I was like, and that's a jury of his peers?
That's hard for me because the whole trial is going to be in one language. I mean,
right. And then they have on headphones.
Wow.
And it's being interpreted for them.
Yeah. And how are you going to catch nuance like that being translated?
Right. That bothered me.
Yeah.
The second thing was I ended up sitting next to this very cute girl who was knitting. Okay. And it was Moon Unit Zappa.
Oh, she was right on.
And we became friends.
Oh, right.
And she was and is the sweetest little ethereal fairy. Yeah. She was just adorable. She was married at the time to Paul. I can't remember. He was the drummer for like maybe Matchbox 20. Whatever the band Rob Thomas is in. I know who am I asking?
Yes. Rob Thomas, Matchbox 20. I don't know the drummer's name.
Oh, no, his name is Paul Doucette. Paul Doucette, that's it. Paul was a sweet guy, and they were an adorable couple. They've since split up, which bothers me greatly, but they had a house on Laurel and Woodrow Wilson. Oh, good, Melissa, tell their address.
Yeah, right.
They don't live there anymore. Sorry. 5527 Woodrow Wilson Drive.
Sure. But in the canyons is what.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And that totally checks out.
Oh, sweet little one-story ranch. Always had wonderful parties. I met Chris Hardwick there, who was a total douche nozzle to me.
Oh, no.
It's totally fine. He's so funny, but he was such a dick.
Oh.
But yeah, no, I mean, it was like, he's just, just a lot of bullshittery.
I used to like him until
I
that
do.
sentence.
He's a really good comic. Anyway, no one needs to hear all that. But the other thing, except that Moon Unit Zappa is a sweet little goddess walking the earth. The other thing I learned during my wonderful time at Superior Court jury duty was a guy who was reading the entire time, and he held up his book so the bailiff and everyone else could see. And the title of the book was Guilty, and the font was Dripping Blood.
Yes.
The word guilty in dripping blood. And I thought, you motherfucker, you know how to play this game.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So none of us got called.
Oh, good.
My guess is the case settled or something.
Oh, they didn't even call any jury. Oh, okay.
We were released at the end of the day.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was an interesting experience. I think we all got like $5 or something. Yeah. So apparently the judge's orders kind of had the same effect of changing the venue without ever having to change the courthouse. But I still don't get, I guess there's a really good reasoning that I'm just not,
He's going to bring some money into the hotels and stuff of his town.
Oh, because a town of 3,500 probably has, like a 5-star DoubleTree?
Well, their one hotel is now filled with
the Dewdrop Inn.
Right.
Okay.
And the rest of they're trucking in 3 meals a day to those jurors. You gotta boost the revenues.
Yeah, I guess it's definitely interesting to me to hear that. So when I said we have stuff to get to, I shouldn't be talking all about fucking jury duty. But from episode 252, the betrayal of Jesus, tipster Bruce said that Jesus would have kicked Mary Magdalene to the curb for me.
That's very, okay.
I thought that was a compliment, but now I'm not sure.
I mean,
is he saying I'm a prostitute?
It's a very odd compliment.
Yeah, that's kind of Bruce. Backward compliments. He's a screenwriter, so So
definitely
he said Jesus would have kicked Mary Magdalene to the curb for you, and I was like, thank you. Does he think I have a foot fetish?
Oh.
I enjoy washing grown men's feet and then fucking them. I don't know if he fucked her.
I don't either.
I just remember a stand-up comic saying after watching, and he goes, I wouldn't judge if Jesus and Mary Magdalene had something going on, but I can guarantee Willem Dafoe does not. The Last Temptation of Christ. That's it. Yes. Thank you, Joshua. He's like, I can guarantee you Willem Dafoe does not want to fuck Barbara Hershey.
Oh, jeez.
I'm like, okay. Like, Jesus gives up everything for Barbara Hershey. And I thought she was beautiful, but hey, what do I know? So thanks, tipster Bruce, for that so much. Editor Matt said he did not want to file a sexual harassment suit against me or Joshua.
Oh, good.
But
not yet.
The day is young.
Yeah.
But he wanted to file a suit against one of the Christmas Manscaped songs I wrote because... And here's why. I'm going to disagree with him because I don't take the easy road. I don't take the easy road out. And he said it was right there in front of you. And it was like, to face unafraid, the balls we have trimmed, walking in a Manscaped Wonderland. He goes, why didn't you say shaved?
Oh, no.
To face unafraid, the balls we have shaved. And I said, because I'm an artist.
He doesn't like your rhyme.
No. Because I didn't go for the easy. That's what he wants to file a suit against. That I didn't say shaved. I said trimmed.
No, not that he has a problem with you spending all the time creating the songs.
No. Yeah.
He has a problem with one specific rhyme.
Yeah.
He has.
That I didn't take the easy road to face unafraid the balls we have shaved. Wow. That's pedestrian, Matthew. Pedestrian.
I like it, Matt. Well played.
Oh, my God. Okay. So from episode 251, which is the Linda Bennett case, I got an amazing email, and I think I've made like new best friends. It's tipster Tony and his wife. And at first I thought he was like yelling at me, but he said, I wasn't dressing you down. And I'm like, no, I was dressing myself down. So he's a professional forensic scientist. He's a forensic anthropologist.
Okay.
And Such a sweet man. I was going to read part of his email. He said I could. I got permission. It's sort of a heady thing when someone who does something you respect so much listens to your podcast. It's very, like, I was totally fangirling.
Cool.
So he said I was familiar with the Linda Bennett case because my wife was the last artist who did a rendition of her.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he and his wife, Katiana, are, both forensic anthropologist artists, recreationists. And I think I'm slowly winning them over, and they might be guests on the podcast.
Right on.
Yeah.
Cool.
So the email from Tony said, he's so formal, and his logo on his email is a skeleton like this, like he's looking, and then on his desk is a skull. It's like a human looking at a human. Except they're skulls. It's, okay. I mean, it's like beautiful.
Oh, right on.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
Cool.
So he says, "Good evening, Ms. Morgan." And I was like, oh shit, this is my first time writing into a podcast. And first, I'd like to offer my condolences at the loss of your husband, Mark. I am a professional forensic scientist, forensic anthropologist, podcast enthusiast, and regular listener to your show. I've been listening to you for quite some time and enjoy your presentation of cases and passion for your work, which is just such a beautiful thing. While listening to your most recent episode, I was surprised because of my familiarity with this case. Rather, it was my wife, Katiana, a board-certified forensic artist, who completed the most recent artistic reconstruction of Ms. Bennett. And then he links an article with, I don't know if you remember, did I show you all those pictures where it's like some of them, her hair is light, some of them, her hair. And I was like bitching, but I also then mentioned to people who do great renditions like Carl Koppelman and Frank Bender. And so I'm such a fucking nerd. And he's worked with both of them. During your show, you discussed several of the problematic issues with forensic art and reconstruction: hair color, black and white reproduction, sculpture versus drawing. These are topics that Katiana and I have consistently talked about internally and professionally. For instance, hair, like bone, takes on the characteristics of the environment where it resides. Thus, color is hard to estimate and must be done carefully so as not to mislead potential resources. Care must be taken to wash and measure hair present to get a best estimate of its length and color prior to any artistic rendition. Forensic art is only as good as the interpretation of the bone. Thus, in this case, Ms. Bennett being, and here's my favorite part, he taught me a new word, edentulous.
Edentulous
means without teeth.
Ah, edentulous.
Yeah.
Wow.
Ms. Bennett being edentulous while having a relatively young skeletal age was initially a bit confounding. Thus, as you mentioned, she appeared older than her chronological age. And then he says, in any event, if you would like to speak to Katiana and I, we would love to talk to you. And I'm like, right on. Yeah. And he said, I don't know if this qualifies as a tipster, but I hope it does.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. If you remember, she was like 38.
Right.
And I thought, this woman in drawings and recreations looks 65.
Sure.
When you don't have teeth, your face becomes, more sunken.
Right.
And I just, I think she'd had a hard life.
Right.
Really hard life. If you have any more space on your podcast list, Depression Mode is a really great podcast. It's wonderful and sometimes difficult. It talks to people from different walks of life who are suffering from depression. And I know that sounds terrible, but it's got a great purpose because, sometimes it's people that you see in the public eye and you're like, well, they can't be depressed. And they're depressed as fuck.
Oh, okay.
The one this week had a special place in my heart. It was Paulina Portskova, Rick Ocasek's wife. I don't know if you remember Rick Ocasek from the Cars. Mm-hmm. They were married like 30 years and then they were estranged but living together. And he died, and his will he'd made out 9 months earlier said, I will not be providing for my wife.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And it was a couple of years in court, but his sons did the right thing and settled with her. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And she's kind of an amazing, amazing creature. She, you're a 19-year-old model and you meet a 40-year-old rock star.
Sure.
Who tells you he's 36. I don't know why that extra 4 years would matter.
Well,
but yeah.
Okay.
And then you're together basically her whole adult life.
Wow.
Yeah. It was very interesting. So I was also listening to Conan O'Brien's podcast, who I just adore, and he had Bryan Cranston on, which I just totally love him. And he gave me the most amazing quote, which is, "Men are just boys who shave." So how are your balls, Joshua?
Oh boy. Speaking of shaving,
how's it hanging, my friend?
Well, what's amazing, Manscaped has some breaking news. This is definitely breaking. We knew it a few weeks ago, but now
we've been keeping it under our hats or under our boxers.
Manscaped is now selling beard products. They're once again revolutionizing men's grooming with the brand new Beard Hedger Pro kit.
Beard Hedger.
Uh-huh.
I love it.
Because, you don't want to use the same beard trimmer. You definitely don't want your...
pointed out, you don't want your balls to smell like your beard.
Yes.
Which is such a bizarre thought, but it could only come from the fertile mind of Joshua Bevan. You definitely don't want your balls to smell like beard.
Yes.
Whatever that smells like.
That would be bad.
Okay. No, probably not, but okay.
Yeah, so you can get 20% off and free shipping when you use the code JustTheTip at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping using the code JustTheTip.
Yeah, and I mean, the Beard Hedger is hilarious. It goes along with the Lawnmower 4.0. Yeah. So the Weed Whacker, the Beard Hedger, and the Lawnmower. That's great. Those are great. I mean, come on. Those are perfect. Great names.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I love most about Joshua is that everything is new again. It's like being friends with a dementia patient because it's a very young dementia patient, or he is Dory from Finding Nemo.
I can speak whale.
I bet you can. Yeah, it's always fun because I'll say something and he'll be like, "I don't know what you're talking about," and I'll be like, "There was a guy named O.J. Simpson. He was supposed to have killed his wife and a guy." And he's like, what happened? So this is the episode we had done, probably 4 or 5 weeks ago when I got my new MacBook Pro, which I hate with every fiber of my being. And I did something wrong where I didn't have a button flipped or something hooked up, which Joshua was supposed to remind me now every week and he forgets, but I'm pretty good at doing it. I think I'm pretty good at it. I think it's there. Let's hope.
I hope
because if this doesn't record, I will lose my fucking shit.
Something's getting thrown for sure.
At the very least. No. So this is a very interesting case for me, and I don't like old-timey cases, but it is the Mills Hall murder, and it's two very interesting people murdered in a very interesting way in the early 20s. So there was a book actually written about it. 2022 is the 100th year anniversary. So it was 1922. Okay. And the book is Blood and Ink, the Scandalous Jazz Age Double Murder That Hooked America. Uh-huh. So they kind of call it one of the first cases that had like countrywide attention, like, the beginning of true crime.
Okay.
That people, loved listening to it. And I found really great stuff in the New Yorker, Vanity Fair, the Yale Review, and there's even someone who opened a walking tour of like the sites.
Oh, okay.
Because it's different areas.
All right.
After an investigative report and some statements were previously in private possession, and they were released by the New Brunswick Library.
Wow.
Like I think 2019. So yeah, this person was very smart and, was like, I'm going to pick up all these things that I can get now, informational, and I'm going to start a walking tour.
That's cool.
All the murdery places and who lived where. And
that's super smart.
He does it, I think, every Friday night at 8:00, and you don't have to make a reservation. You just show up. And I think he said it takes about an hour.
Right on.
I know.
That's a fun thing.
It makes me want to go. I know. I think, is it New Brunswick? New Jersey. We'd have to go to New Jersey. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, but it's New Jersey.
I know. But what if we just like flew in
No, totally.
Thursday
Let's go.
night.
No, I'm totally teasing.
Friday we
I
go.
want to go to Jersey.
Saturday we come home.
No, let's spend a day at the Jersey Shore.
And see if there's any situations.
Yes.
Yeah. Or DJs, douchey DJs. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would love to go on this walking tour because there's a couple of pictures like in front of one of the houses, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. So hopefully I'm going to remember what happens in this case.
Okay. I forgot already, so we're good.
Yeah. So it was the evening of Thursday, September 14th in 1922, and a maid at a house was doing her work around the house. The female of the house hears the phone ring. The maid answers it and says, yes, hold on. And you hear the husband say, is that for me? And then he, comes out of the bathroom, he takes the phone and he's like, yes, sounding very worried. And he's like, okay, all right, I'll be right there. So he is a minister and tries to make it seem like that he is going to be with a parishioner. Well, he is, but not to console them. Unless you console them with your dick. I don't know.
Be with the parishioner. I'm with you.
Yeah. Consoling them in the in the physical way, I guess.
Let us pray.
Yeah, exactly. Edward Hall is a minister, and he's married to kind of a rich, older, not that much older, but somewhat older, which was sort of a big deal in the 20s, woman who was she comes from a wealthy wallpaper company.
Oh, okay.
And they actually even had a lot of income stream because they leased their headquarters to the founders of Johnson & Johnson.
Oh,
yeah.
Right on. Okay. So
Eleanor has a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Eleanor meets Edward at a church event, and he's, like a young assistant minister, and Eleanor is, handing out baked goods. And let's say Eleanor wasn't potentially considered classically attractive.
Oh, no.
Yeah. But she was rich, and they had this thing in common of, their religious beliefs. So they'd been married about 10 years, and this maid, Louise Geist, picks up the phone and and hears her boss going, yes. Oh, that's too bad. I will be there by 8:15. It's too bad that your husband thinks that you're doing something else, and then I can mount you. That's what's too bad. So Edward Hall goes to meet Eleanor Mills, both married. And they are not found for, I guess it's 2 days.
Oh, wow.
And it's interesting. The way they're found is extremely interesting. But so Mrs. Hall does not report him missing right away. In fact, they go through the entire night with him not being home. And I think it was the maid, Louise Geist, who ended up reporting him missing the next morning. So the police show up and, are taking a report, and they were like, why didn't you report him missing until now? And she said, oh, I was out looking for him between 2 and 3 in the morning. And then Eleanor Mills' husband said, I was out looking for them from 3 to 4 in the morning. Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
You would go out in the middle of the night. Yeah. Frances said she and her brothers were out looking for him.
Okay, so she, rather than calling the police, she supposedly calls her brothers to go, hey, look for my husband.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That seems, that's the way it should go, right? Middle of the night.
Yeah.
New Brunswick, New Jersey. Yeah. So 2 lovers are walking around an abandoned apple orchard, and they find these 2 people that are lying there in a very odd posed way. So it's Edward Mills it's Edward Hall and Eleanor Mills, and they're lying next to each other. His hand is under her neck. Her hand is on his thigh. There are love letters between the 2 that are cut up and put between the bodies. Edward's calling card as a minister is propped up against the bottom of his shoe.
Wow.
He's been shot, and Eleanor's head has almost been taken off her body.
Oh, geez.
It's later found out that her tongue and larynx had been removed
Oh, my gosh.
and never found.
Somebody kept them as a souvenir.
Yeah.
Gross.
Yeah.
Huh.
Who do you think would do that?
Yeah. Well, okay. So, and they were totally, I mean, it's obviously these bodies are posed and staged that way. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I'm wondering how, I mean, and, you know, obviously it was 1922 and 100 years has made a huge difference in how you collect evidence. It really was like this big thing where people showed up and kind of trampled through the crime scene just to see the body.
Yeah.
I know things are much different now, but you know, the police said they'd formed a ring around the bodies and people still broke through.
Wow.
I know it's sort of weird. It's, you know, goes back to,
so gross.
Do we need to know everything? You know, do you need to see, you know, these people?
Hey, everybody, we found some bodies.
Yeah. Come on
out.
over. Right. Yeah. Right. Let me send you the coordinates. Yeah.
What are you doing today? I'm going to go see the bodies. You want to come?
Yeah. I'm going to see the bodies and pick some apples. Bring a bushel. Yeah. Yeah. So it's, you know, a terrible thing. It's obviously they didn't do it. You know, it wasn't a murder-suicide. It had to be a murder, which I think is so interesting that the lead detective at the time said he figured that it came down to being a suicide because there was an absence of a gun.
Oh, sure.
I bet you there are some very brilliant tipsters who might be able to tell me about a case of suicide where someone cuts their own throat and removes their own larynx and tongue, but I don't know of any.
That's amazing.
That to me would have been like a big clue also.
Sure.
That Eleanor is, you know, almost decapitated.
Yeah.
I would imagine if you cut your own throat at a certain point, you're going to pass out and not be able to finish it.
Yeah. I mean, you're done.
Yeah. Like, yeah. Quick. Yeah. You can't keep doing it.
Yeah.
You know, cut through your spine and the whole, it's God. not good. So there's no charges filed. And then in 1926, 4 years after the original investigation failed to indict anyone, there's new fingerprint evidence because they brought in a firearms expert. The case has been reopened because of the fingerprint evidence.
Okay.
So there's also an allegation of conspiracy and cover-up made by Edward Hall's maid and Frances Hall. So there is a conspiracy theory brought up by Louise Geist's husband, the maid to Edward and Frances, because they were going through a divorce proceeding, and he, I believe it was for custody of the kids, he said Louise had told him that Edward Hall had been murdered by his wife, and he, you know, was like, why haven't you come forward with this? And she said, I never said that. I didn't know anything about this. I didn't know until the next morning when I woke up. He was missing. I have no, you know. So it feels like finger pointing kind of bullshit.
Yeah, okay.
You know, used in a divorce proceeding. So it's standing room only in Somerset County Courthouse. And there are 160 witnesses.
Oh my gosh.
160 witnesses.
100. What did all these people witness?
Well, that is such a great question, Joshua. I guess they were brought in as like maybe character witnesses.
Oh, okay, sure.
I don't know. It was also called the first $1 million trial.
Oh,
because the defense attorneys, there were two. Their fee added up to $1 million.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot of money back then.
In 22, that's crazy.
1922. So some of the 160 witnesses are, you know, probably interesting character witnesses, but there's only one who is a supposed eyewitness.
Okay.
And that is Jane Gibson, who is known as the Pig Woman. And it's not because she's fat or has a funny nose.
Oh, no.
It's because she has pigs.
She owns pigs. Okay, fair.
Yeah.
All right.
So the Pig Woman said she owns property adjacent to the abandoned apple orchard.
Okay.
And she said sometime around midnight she heard screams. Now, what is interesting about that is that they believe their bodies were murdered somewhere else and brought there and posed, that they weren't meeting in the apple orchard and then surprised. So I'm fascinated by how did they get them together? Like, did they have Eleanor Mills call Edward Hall and say, like, was she under duress? Like, was her husband like, call him and set up an appointment now?
Okay.
And then, because the theory is that Frances and Eleanor Mills' husband,
the wife and the husband,
yeah,
conspired to get this done. Okay.
Yeah. And her husband was also it's like a deacon in the church, but he also did duties around the church, like dig graves.
Oh.
To me, it's like, if you're like a professional gravedigger and you want to kill your wife for cheating and her lover, wouldn't you just put him in a hole somewhere?
I mean, you know where all the holes are,
Right.
so sure,
where all the ground is easy to get through.
Yeah.
You're not going to be like busting your ass getting through limestone.
Yeah.
Or something. It was just, I'm not sure he's involved. I'm also not sure that Frances is, but she has these two brothers and some cousins, and
and the brothers might be part of it too. Okay.
yes, in my opinion.
Okay.
So the pig woman, Jane Gibson, is brought in, and it's like a month-long trial, and Frances Hall and her brothers are defended by these prominent attorneys: Ralph McCarter, Clarence Case. Oh, I said there were two, there were three, and Timothy Pfeiffer. They're literally the first $1 million legal team in the United States. And here's what's interesting: knowing how hard it is to get a case covered in 1922, it was covered every day for the 1 month it took by 70 publications.
Wow.
I know. 70 publications, and that was totally unprecedented for the time. So they are found not guilty.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Frances Hall goes and lives her life, and she died in 1942. So this is 1926. So she lived another 16 years. This is my favorite part, that Joshua was like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Jane Gibson, the pig woman, was dying of cancer during part of her testimony. So they brought her in on a hospital bed.
Oh, geez.
And people were like screaming at her from the gallery saying, she's a liar, she's crazy.
Oh,
and the person screaming the loudest was Jane Gibson's mother.
Oh, wow.
Her daughter's dying.
Oh,
she's
man.
testifying at a case as an eyewitness.
And her own,
or ear witness, I guess.
Her own mom is publicly screaming at her.
She's crazy. Don't believe anything she says. She's a complete liar.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
On your deathbed.
Okay.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah. Oh, boy.
So apparently this case, it is kind of captivating. He's a minister. She's a rich woman. One of the parishioners and one of his kind of assistants, Eleanor Mills was called like the princess of the choir. And she was pretty. She was like a pretty woman in 1922. Edward, not so much. But yeah. And Frances, really not so much.
Okay.
Really not so much at all. I'm sorry. It shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter what they look like. And I don't know what Eleanor's husband looks like. Maybe he was a doll, but he spends all of his time digging graves. So I don't know. Anyway, not that you can't be a handsome grave digger. You absolutely could.
I would imagine.
Like big muscles and stuff. Your name's Thor. Yeah.
Yeah, you're getting it done.
Yeah. So there is a cartoon that is drawn by a college newspaper. It's Rutgers, the Rutgers University newspaper. It was called The Chanticleer. And this cartoon was banned by the Rutgers president, and the city council tried to object. The New Brunswick City Council tried to object to the satirical treatment of the trial. And this entire issue was devoted to this trial. And there was one cartoon. There were other renditions, like of the pig woman and some other things. But the one cartoon that really got everyone all upset was the one drawn by Ozzie Nelson, which I know I mentioned him and you're like, who the fuck's that? So Ozzie and Harriet had a show in the 50s.
Got it.
Yeah. Ricky Nelson was her son.
Mm-hmm.
You have no idea what I'm talking about. I went to a garden party. Remember that song? No, you have no idea what I'm talking about. Okay. So Ricky Nelson, that's what I love about Joshua, the youngster in my life, is I get to go, back when I was a kid, back before electricity.
Sure.
Yeah. So anyway, Ozzie Nelson was this like total renegade who drew cartoons, like very, subversive cartoons.
Okay. And he was a student at Rutgers at the time? Okay.
Yeah. And editor of the Chanticleer. Okay. Dedicated an entire issue to the month-long trial. And it turned out to be even more popular when it was banned.
Of course.
Like underground shit.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like, pictures of cartoons of their body, the apple orchard. I think it's fascinating. Their love letters were, who do you think found the love letters? Who do you think the love letters were to?
Like
to her, to him? I guess it was between both of them. So
literally torn up in between both of them.
Smarty pants. I'm like, do you think that her husband John and Edward's wife Frances got together and decided we need to end them both?
That would be my first look if I were looking around. Yeah.
Also,
especially with the love letters there posed like that. That's
right, chopped up.
That seems
thrown in between their bodies.
That seems very emotional. That seems very
okay. Thank you for saying that, because Edward was shot like 3 times.
Yeah.
Eleanor was almost decapitated.
Yeah,
i.e., Nicole Simpson.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like that's a very passion-filled crime.
Sure.
In my mind, who would kill her with such ferocity? Would it be her husband or would it be Frances?
Oh, right. Those are the first people I would look at for sure.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting. It took 4 years to bring him to trial.
Yeah. Just not enough evidence to.
Well, there was that, redone fingerprint evidence because they brought in an expert. I can't even imagine. He draws pictures of a thumb. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out, how are you a fingerprint expert in 1922? Yep, that's a finger. I don't know. What do you say?
It's pretty brand new. Fingerprinting wasn't that old at the time, right?
No, I can't. Oh, I guess it started earlier in the century, but yeah, you're right.
Like it's kind of a new.
And what you have to do is visually compare.
Right.
You don't have a CODIS or a computer you can put images in and go, that's it.
Sure. Yeah. Well, no. Yeah, and you'd have to do the swirls this way and the this that way.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. Yeah, it's interesting. I should have more faith in the justice system or in the jurors at the time, because it took 4 years to even bring them to trial, and then it took a month for them to be found not guilty. And who else would it be? Like somebody who didn't like the way he, did his sermons or the way she sang?
Sure. Somebody trying to frame the husband and wife.
See, you're smarter than me.
But
that's a lot of work.
Else. Well, and since it's so obvious that it was this passionate lovers, thing, maybe it was, a disgruntled parishioner that's now like that knew, everybody
judging them.
Everybody's going to know if they're
probably. And people talk even when there's nothing to talk about.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I don't know. There's nothing else here that would point at anything else, but
right. I don't think they were walking along holding hands and some crazed rando came up and shot him and then almost cut her head off and then take him to an apple orchard and pose them.
Right.
A rando wouldn't have access to their love letters.
Sure.
Or I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they carried their love letters with them every time they went.
And they read them to each other.
Yeah, right.
They didn't actually cheat. They just
read love letters to each other.
Yes.
Here's what I would like. Exhibit A. Here's what I would like to do to you. It's written in written form. I am going to submit this to the editor and see what he says. Yeah, it's a totally weird case, and I understand why there's a walking tour.
No, totally.
It has to be all in a kind of a small area. If it only takes, an hour. The thing I'd want to see, and I know you're going to think I'm terribly grisly, is the apple orchard. I wonder if it's still an apple orchard.
Well, and what's so funny is we were just making fun of all of the town people that were trampling the scene, and then now
I'm them.
And I'm them too. I said it. Like, I want to go.
No, yeah, I feel like you have a different reason for going. Like, you're not a monster. I feel like I'm a monster, but I'm a good monster.
Sure.
Like, I just would like to go to see if it's even still 100 years later, if it's still an apple orchard, or if it's like a highway running through it.
Oh yeah, I mean, 100 years is a long time,
right? And I wonder if the pig woman's farm is still a farm, or maybe it's probably condos. The
bloodstain's still there.
Yeah. Yeah, on the ground.
Maybe you could look around and find a larynx lying around.
Yeah, a dried, shriveled larynx. What's this?
What's this here?
Oh, no, Melissa, that's a Slim Jim. Put that down. Someone dropped the Slim Jim. You are like a terrible investigator.
Tongue.
Oh, my God, we're so going to get hate mail. And Joshua started it. Joshua started this. It's his fault. Okay, I know I said I didn't really like old time cases, but this one was pretty interesting to me.
That's way cool.
It's like it was at one point referred to as Christians behaving badly, which I thought was pretty fucking funny. And it's like, okay, Christians that are cheating, but also potentially people that call themselves Christians who take two lives.
Yeah.
That's the interesting hypocrisy of that. Yeah. I get it. It's, like, thou shalt not, fuck your neighbor's wife. I don't think that's how they worded it, but, something like that.
I'm pretty sure kill is one of them too, though.
Right. I was going to say. I feel like that's a little bit more important.
I mean, I don't know about the order, but yeah.
Yeah. That's number 15.
Yeah.
Do not kill your neighbor's wife because you think they're fucking. And they were just reading letters to each other. They're
just reading the letters.
Yeah.
And they were speaking the letters, and that's why they cut out her tongue and larynx.
That's actually what I thought.
Yeah.
Not that they were speaking it, but because of the letters.
Yeah.
And here's a terrible other thing I thought. I'm a terrible person. Yeah. They cut out her tongue and larynx because she had his penis in her mouth. I know. It's terrible.
Well, okay.
I know.
There's that too.
I know.
Sure.
I know. And they just shot him, I guess, to get him from, to stop licking her or something. I don't know.
Sure.
Wow. I need help is what I'm saying right now. This is a cry for help.
So graphic.
I know. I'm sorry. The only other case I know with that is Ed Kemper, who cut out his mom's, larynx and fucked her throat.
Oh, God. Oh, fuck.
I know. So I feel like that is extremely personal.
Yeah.
An extremely personal thing.
Yeah.
And by the way, no one needs my opinion, but I really hope that they, didn't get to use Ed Kemper as a consultant on the Idaho 4, because obviously Brian Kohberger is his own weird entity, and they don't need Ed Kemper to give his fucking opinion.
Oh my God.
And I get it. He's a genius. He is definitely tested at a genius level, but he's also a fucking sociopath.
That's nuts.
It bothered me a lot. And you know what else bothers me? And I'm a terrible person. I don't care. Ed Kemper is the voice of a whole bunch of audio tapes for like reading for the blind. Also kids' books on audio.
Really? Like
they have him voice, like the Velveteen Rabbit or some bullshit. Yeah.
No, really?
Good Night Moon by Ed Kemper. Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God.
Did the moon have a tongue and larynx asking for a friend? Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Seriously.
That is nuts.
I guess it's like free talent, but I am anti Ed Kemper. Can you use people that maybe,
does he have like
robbed
a nice voice? Like, is it?
I don't particularly like it. No.
Oh, well.
No, it's not like, they're getting it's not like it's Morgan Freeman.
Right.
It's not like a terrible voice. It's also not a great one.
Okay.
I never understood. And why him? Like, is this a thing that, when you hear things like, prisoners are making your license plates, and prisoners are, involved in a lot more commerce than we know. Prisons are privatized in some way.
Yeah, a lot of that is really nuts when you start looking at the
what they do,
the economics of it. Yeah.
Like I think I told you, it might have been last week or the week before, I had a boss who said he only invested in the 3 inevitables.
Death, taxes, prison?
No, close. Cemeteries, privatized prisons, and erectile dysfunction medicine.
Yes.
The 3 inevitables.
Okay. That perfect.
Yeah, apparently he's, made some good investments. I don't know.
I hear there's a lot of money in boner pills.
And privatized prisons.
Sure, yeah.
and cemeteries. Yeah. I just thought that was funny that those were, in his mind, the 3 inevitables.
That's it. 3 inevitables.
Yeah. How did we get here?
I don't even know.
I feel like it's your fault.
It is.
So, hey, tipsters, you'll just know that there's a whole bunch of shit cut out because Joshua and I tend to take left turns that end up on a lonely road going nowhere.
Where did we?
Yeah. I'm just going to blame Joshua.
Should have made a left at Albuquerque.
Yeah, totally Albuquerque. If you have a tip on a missing person or unsolved homicide, or you just want to suggest a case, please give us a call at 832-TIPSTER. That's 832-847-7837. You can email us like Tipster Tony did, and you don't have to be a forensic anthropologist. You can be anyone at jttipsters@gmail.com, or you can find us on any of the social media platforms. Just the Tipsters Facebook page, at JT Tipsters on Instagram, at JT Tipsters Pod on Twitter, and more cowbell.
If you would like to support this podcast and get early access and other cool murderous swag, go to patreon.com/justthetipsters.